Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
Where we cover everything, big and small, in the world of Dynamics, Power Platform, and now Copilot everything, really.
How are you doing, Max?
Oh, not too bad. It's good to be here, not only here on the call, but actually on camera and talking to
Yeah,
everyone.
it's great to have you not just producing, but also throwing in a little commentary here and there. So,
At least as it pertains. I mean, I can't say I've got the same level of content you and Lauren usually do, but I'll be here for anything kind of as I see fit. But also, most importantly, the dad jokes.
well, of course. So, lay one on me. What do you got?
All right, I think I'm gonna do two quick ones. Just because the first one I liked, but the second one I just came across, I think is all too fitting and you'll enjoy. So the first one, why don't programmers like nature?
Programmers like nature. It's not artificial, like AI. I don't know. What?
It
Why don't
has too many bugs.
too many bugs? Yeah, I like it. I like it. What else
And
you
then,
got? You said you had
all
a
right,
second one.
next one, I had Copilot help me with this, and I had to have some Copilot flair in there. So why did Copilot become a dad?
Could celebrate Father's Day coming up.
Because it kept saying, I can help guide you, but you still have to do the driving.
Gotcha, gotcha,
But
gotcha. Ba-dum-bum. All right, well, let's jump in and see if we can enhance this a bit with our content. So, I'll share out my screen there. And first up, the cat team, I believe, put together this release planner app. So we've had the release planner website for a while, and the app might just be a little bit easier for some people to use. So if you're interested, go ahead and download and run the new release planner app. It still ties into the same data source. It just organizes it a little bit more and makes it an app instead of just a website. So take advantage if it'll help you. Power Pages for a while have had the ability to use some coding tools, but the skills and agentic capabilities within Claude Code and GitHub Copilot CLI that are out there are now generally available. So install the plugin, use it at will to generate better Power Pages sites with a little assistance from AI. Along with that Power Pages theme, the team has also updated several of our templates that have been getting a little dated to the new template model that has the enhanced data model and our all Bootstrap version 5 instead of Bootstrap version 3. So they are updated so that when you deploy them, you aren't starting with a fairly dated, stale template. You're a little more ready for faster provisioning, better ALM, more updates, more accessible, all the other great things that are there with the new capabilities. So take advantage of those if you're standing up a new Power Pages site with one of those templates. Another nice new feature that not really feature. This one is actually just great guidance that the CAT team, as they continue to work with customers, develop techniques to do exacting type customizations in Copilot Studio to do really good things. And if you were looking to get to PDF citations where the PDFs were stored, especially in SharePoint, and you wanted to be able to make it call out the exact page number and link to where that content is that's being referenced, that they've got a pattern here. And it uses the topics in order to house this and capture it and to inject its little secret sauce into making sure that those citations are referenced. So you do have to use the classic Copilot Studio instead of the new improved version with the new orchestrator that is coming up in the next post if you want to be able to use that capability, because it does leverage topics to do it. Speaking of the new enhanced Copilot Studio user interface and authoring experience, Henry Jams put together this nice little clarification, and I'm going to reference another blog post by a different person in just a minute that talks about some of the same things. But the new authoring experience is not just a UI change, that it is using the updated orchestrator that is kind of significantly superior in doing chain of thought reasoning and understanding things coming out of Work IQ, especially document kind of synthesis over quite a bit of SharePoint information and getting you the right knowledge content out of that stuff. So I'm kind of highly encourage people start playing around with this. It is still in preview and it is missing a few of the features that the classic experience has. We're not to parity yet, but it is beautiful and it is easy and it also leverages skills, which is the modern way to give these AI tools, like you're building as you build an agent in Copilot Studio, the ability to understand what you really want it to do and to give it a lot of guardrails and advice on how to behave properly. And that we could do that through instructions before. We're still going to have instructions, but these skills are much more reusable snippets of ways to give great guidance that are pretty standardized now across the industry. So I'm glad we've sort of adopted that. The one thing to call out, and I think it gets called out in the other blog post that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit as well, is that the classic experience created agents that you've all probably built lots of leading up to this new announcement, there is no conversion to the new experience. So if you have one of those, it stays in that experience. You can't just convert it, at least not yet. And that you have to build a brand new agent if you want it to rely on this new experience that does understand the skills and uses only the new chain of thought reasoning orchestrator and all the other goodness that's part of it. So just food for thought. But it's nice that we have both available to us and we can flip back and forth as authors to which one meets the business need best. So next announcement is really a kind of public service alert that tuning your models to fit your business's data better and your use cases a little bit better through the reinforcement learning environment is a fantastic announcement. It is private preview right now, so it's not something you can just go flip on unless you are in the program. If you're interested in joining it, that you can come down to this link, which will pop you into a form that you'll fill out, and we'll see if the product team wants to let you enroll into the private preview. Once it becomes public, we'll announce a little bit more about how to start doing it for all the rest of us who didn't make the program. So nice thing that we know is coming and a way to apply. So try it out and apply if you're interested. Next one is big for the governance team and probably will end up being big for the makers because they'll be able to do things a little bit easier. That advanced connector policies that have been previewed for a while are now generally available. And the beautiful thing about these advanced connector policies is we don't have some of the limitations that the former thing we used to call DLP in Power Platform were sort of plagued by, if you will. That now in advanced connector policies, you don't have to figure out is this business or non-business or blocked. It's just, can you use it or not? And every connector out there can be blocked or can be enabled on an environment by environment basis. If you want to have that handled by that pattern, it can also be applied to environment groups if you're using environment groups so that the same pattern applies to everything in the group. So you've got two different ways to do it, one at a time or in the group. And you can decide, because it will exist for a while anyway, in concert with your existing DLP policies. And if you kind of liked how those DLP policies worked, but just want to apply this on top of those for some more granular controls, you can do that. You can also say, I want to instantiate this and have it completely supersede and just basically knock out for this particular environment what used to be applied through the legacy DLP stuff and just apply these connector policies. So those are a couple of the things that are nice, but now when you go build a rule, it just either applies or it doesn't. You don't really have to worry about all of the sort of rule on top of rule on top of rule and how are they actually all joining together to figure out what's going on. So the actions, the connectors, the environments, should be significantly simpler to administer to make sure that you are controlling that data access in exactly the way you want to. Next one, there are some nice updates to the Dataverse plugin for coding agents, which ends up making sure that if you are using GitHub Copilot CLI or Claude Code in order to do coding and it's going to touch Dataverse, that the Dataverse plugins understand how to both configure Dataverse with all the various tables and kind of attributes about them and what columns are needed and all the other stuff. But it also allows you to query the Dataverse data in plain English. So it solves both the kind of administration of the schema and the how to interact with the data within it, and then also how to do environment management all in the same plugin so that you can do all sorts of great stuff from any of those kind of code first tools. So one unified approach, install the plugin, and you got lots of tools at your disposal as a maker at that point. So this article I just included in my show notes because ALM has always been something that we all can get better at. And I thought it was just a really good, fairly simple but thorough explanation of what matters in getting it right in trying to do application lifecycle management of dev, test, prod, and continuous innovation over time for Copilot Studio agents. So that applies mostly to everything in Power Platform, but they've put a couple of tweaks in there that are unique for Copilot Studio agents. I'm really not going to comment on it because it's not kind of bringing up anything brand new. I just thought it was a really helpful thing to just read through again and remind yourself of what things are important in that realm. Next topic, we have redone the link to Fabric capacity, not really capacity, the link to Fabric functionality. So if you turn on link to Fabric now on the CE side of things that is completely Dataverse driven, we have simplified what happens under the covers. The old process to get the data written into the lake took the stuff that was being transacted on in Dataverse and wrote that into CSVs as close to real time as we could. And then it would take those CSVs, pull them apart, and end up making Delta Parquet under the covers after the CSV write had happened in order to make it ready for the lakehouse where you would actually consume the stuff. And it worked really well. But in order to get to our low latency fast sync process, we took out the CSVs, and the new low latency one writes directly from the transactional Dataverse databases into Delta Parquet directly so that the lakehouse is just reading from it. So it's a one-step right, and it's ready to be used at this point. There's really not even a transformation between this Delta and the lakehouse. The lakehouse is reading right out of that Delta layer. And so it significantly changes the amount of time from when the transaction was committed in Dataverse to when it's available in your lakehouse to report on. So that's really what it's all about. They also enhanced the F&O side of things. They didn't really go into the infrastructure things on the F&O side that changed. They just said it has been rewritten and it's probably increased the speed at which transactions flowed from F&O into that lakehouse by about 30 to 40%, which is significant for the amount of data that does flow over there. So it's great to start playing with this stuff. And the way to tell whether your environment has been converted is to come over into your environment on the Dataverse side of things anyway. And from the environment management portal, or from the Power Apps Maker portal, I'm sorry, when you click on the Azure Synapse link, and you look there, it will show you the link to Fabric. And if it has the low latency mode tag next to it, you're on the new model. If you don't have the low latency mode on there, then if your tenant and the environment group and kind of region where this is deployed and whether it's early release or not meets the criteria where low latency link is available but not auto converted yet and you want to convert, all you really have to do is unlink and then relink, and it will just reinitialize the setup, redo the initial copy of your data, and have everything from that point working on the new low latency model. Otherwise, it will still be working on the old model that have the CSVs in the middle until we auto convert at some point in the future. So just know that all of that is there, and it is a great, powerful new way to think about getting even quicker reporting that doesn't pull directly from Dataverse with needing to do the live queries, which affect its performance. So see how close you can get to real time, or I should say quite real time, to low latency is the best pattern to probably describe it, in the actual lakehouse that's not tied to the transactional data itself. So direct query is not used here. It's just closer to the direct transactions. I think I've over-explained that enough. Here is the other blog post. So it's not on LinkedIn, but this was actually on the blog, talking about the new Copilot Studio kind of UI and orchestrator and how it is more consistent and more reliable and more modern with the way that we are putting things into skills and making sure that the knowledge gets crawled, and the orchestrator kind of reevaluates what it's got for answers and looks at the data again that's coming out of WorkIQ and makes sure that it is bringing back the correct information based on the prompt or instructions at hand and the skills orchestration and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think I need to really rehash this. If you haven't already started playing around with the workflow engine that's been out a little longer than the agent making experience, I'm almost more excited about the workflow engine. It is still fantastic, especially like the out of the box classify without having to even invoke models that will let you classify your data, and then being able to call M365 Copilot, which would then let you launch any agent that has been published to M365 Copilot also within the context of orchestrating this. So now you can call researcher, you can call analyst, or anything else from any environment or agent builder agent that you have in M365 Copilot within the context of this workflow engine that's deterministic. Big step forward. So love it, love it. Play around with it and do great things for your org. Along with what we did in the Dataverse plugin for our coding agents, the team has also upgraded the Dataverse MCP server with a much simpler, more straightforward tool organization and tool definition to make that MCP server actually behave more consistently and faster and with more accuracy against that Dataverse data than the older MCP server did. So that tool shape has been redefined and all the reasons why it's important and all that kind of stuff. So start playing around with the Dataverse MCP server, and it doesn't actually say here. I'm assuming that this new capability is in the preview version of the MCP server only, and that it will make its way down into the others over time, but I'm not 100% clear based on how it was worded and didn't have a chance to follow up on that. Next thing, if you are using the Copilot Studio Kit, an update has come out, so go update your solutions for it. The other thing to be aware of in this, because it's not just some new capability and some enhancements to what was already there, but they are in the process of renaming it from Copilot Studio Kit to Copilot Agent Kit, because it's going to start branching out even to other types of agents outside of just Copilot Studio ones over time. So they're starting that rebrand at this juncture with this update. Agent metrics, I believe, is a brand new thing. Conversation Analyzer has just been updated. A new health and settings view that is including what they had previously had with PowerShield with some extra new features and more visualizations. That conversation KPI that was out there was pretty helpful, and they made some enhancements. New templates out there for new ways to define agents that are probably desired within your organization. Smarter test automation, the agent debugger's been enhanced, agent review tool. So quite a few different things that have gotten included into that Copilot Agent Kit, as we're now calling it. So check it out. Next topic. Dataverse is fantastic as a SaaS data platform, but it does still require care and feeding, just like any other data platform. And some of the things are related to cost, some of them are related to compliance needs, and some of them are just good hygiene that you might want to think about how you are leveraging bulk delete in that data hygiene. And so bulk delete kind of does a nice job of describing how you can go out and do a lot of that bulk delete stuff. But it's a great thing to see what enhancements that they have brought forward with error handling and visibility to what the bulk delete run did with a details tab and which ones failed and which ones completed but might have hit some errors and some of that kind of stuff. And probably the biggest thing is if you configure the desired bulk deletion jobs in your dev environment as you are thinking about building an entire solution and what tables ought to keep data forever and which ones ought to get cleaned up, especially some of those transaction and log and audit type tables that you probably don't want kept around forever. Async operations space type stuff. This is now solution aware, so you can create that pattern that you want it to follow in your dev environment. Make sure that it's working exactly the way you want, add it to your solution, and now when you promote your solution, it can be brought forward into test, QA, whatever you would call any of those intermediate type training environments and everything else, and then even pushed into production if you want to, so that you don't have to go reconfigure this in each of your environments that you want it to operate in. So big move forward there. There's also a permanent deletion checkbox if you have set up the sort of recycle bin for Dataverse that would keep your data in that recycle bin state for up to 30 days before it was permanently deleted so that you could recover stuff. So if you want this wizard to actually fully delete it and not put it in the recycle bin, you can check the box to say this job needs to do that. You can also not check it. If you say, yeah, I want it to delete it to put it in that recycle bin, but just in case it screwed something up and we want 30 days to catch that and restore it, even though it was done through programmatic scripts, then we can let you do that as well. So nice enhancements to all of that. What's new in the Power Platform? Well, we've already covered a lot of them, but I thought it was worth looking through one more time. So the Power Apps MCP server with closed loop learning we talked about last show. Release Planner Code app was the first thing I covered today. This was new though. Desktop flows. You can now compare versions if you have version controlled your Power Automate desktop flows and see version A and version B. You can look at those different versions side by side with built-in version control now. Also, a new action within Power Automate Desktop that you can have the desktop app now launch a Power App with a desktop flow action. And now that I know that, I've actually got something that I am going to go update in one of my experiences with the ability to kick that Power App off. Because I always just sort of detected it and after a timer flipped something up. We already talked about the new DLP policies being changed over to advanced connector policies. And last thing I believe that's very relevant is the Power Platform inventory in your PPAC. Is kind of rolling out and in the preview version and hopefully soon in the generally available version that the inventory is now going to show not just the asset, but what connectors that asset is using and what the operations are within that connector that is being used across apps and flows and agents in your tenant. So making that inventory so much more valuable and so much closer to what we had for inventory in the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, which is still out there, just deprecated and not being currently invested in with any new enhancements. So anyway, it's great to know inventory is receiving all of those other new capabilities. Agent evals becoming ever more important out there. And Copilot Studio has it built right in and it's front and center into the new authoring experience that uses the new orchestrator and the skills capability. That evaluation is just sort of right in the flow of what you do when you make an agent is you build it and then you sort of test it in the test harness and then you evaluate it before you ever promote it to production mode. And This is just a nice blog post that walks through what our data scientists who built that engine are doing to both have that engine create evaluation data that is relevant for doing a good evaluation in case you're not evaluating with production quality data to start with and then letting it generate it, and what things they have it take into consideration as building the right data set to test with. And also, how is it assessing the quality of the evaluation grader that tells you whether it got a 68 or a 75 in terms of its score on what it was supposed to go do. So this was also pretty helpful to just understand how they go and understand those capabilities and make sure that it is continuously getting better and better and better at doing its evaluation. So thought it was kind of a fun data science-y type explanation. All right, so that's it for the Power Platform side of things. On the customer engagement side, I've got 3 things that I thought were also really important, and I'll be able to cover them quickly. Quality evaluation agent of just helping explain, do my workers who are my customer service reps, and really even things that agents or self-service doing in the platform, meeting our quality expectations. So are the resolved cases, are the knowledge bases, are the communications going back to our customers meeting the quality thresholds that we want them to? And before, those emails that were going back to your customers that the reps or agents were generating did not get evaluated by the quality management agent. Emails are now available to the quality management agent to evaluate, along with case resolutions and conversation histories and that kind of thing. So nice to know that those are the post execution, are we adhering to quality, which complements what we're doing with the governance agent, which is putting policy in place to try to make sure that you catch people that are saying incorrect things or agents that are doing incorrect things or things that break policy or whatever before those emails get sent or the conversations get fully logged and all that kind of stuff. So both work. One is trying to help make sure the quality is in the being front and center before the agent or representative communicate with the customer, and the other one is just evaluating what actually got sent. Next one is just talking through with the newer capabilities that have been introduced with real-time voice and how all of those are being incorporated with the customer assist agent in being able to construct the appropriate IVR functionality, and how some of that should be purely agentic and can react with generative orchestration, and how some of it is probably still deterministic and needs to follow very strict adherence rules, and how to weave all of this together within your IVR to deliver very rich, helpful experiences is all outlined here. So take advantage of the advice given. And the last thing here is one of the more complex tasks in most contact centers is defining all of the rules of the conversation orchestration and queuing things up and what goes where and how to react to increased demand in a certain queue and who should then receive it and all that stuff. And a lot of people spend a lot of time building all of those rules, and when they finally implement them, they're still pretty rigid and have trouble reacting in real time to things. Well, conversation orchestration is now in preview in various places, and for what we are allowing people to do now, it's coming into at least a couple of the things that you would want to do in that ACD rules engine, and being able to just describe it in natural language, just like in everywhere else with AI. It's just giving it instructions, and then it will figure out how to execute those instructions in your queues and your channels and your agents and their availability and their workload and their skill, whatever else it needs to take into consideration in order to take the conversation that was input into the system and route it through it at real time, constantly being reevaluated for changing conditions in the queue volume or whatever else it needs to do dynamically to overflow and redirect, and what customer type is it and everything else you wanted to take into consideration. So with that, I think that's going to wrap all of the things. Of course, we've got all sorts of solution updates that are constantly coming out, and I want you all to pay attention to those. And thanks again for joining the episode. Hope you all have a great couple of weeks, and we'll see you in a fortnight.